record this.
Thank you.
So we are recording here, and I am about to do a screen share to show you my
Recording in progress.
show you a little PowerPoint that I put together for us here.
Cool.
How do I do it?
Okay, here we go. So what do we need to know about green considerations in real estate, and what are green considerations? So why do I have the right to talk about such stuff? I also have a green designation. Thank you, NAR, for your scholarship program during COVID to keep all of our brains from going limp. Also, thank you, Shippensburg University, for my bachelor's in science in geographic information. Well, I'm sorry, in geoenvironmental studies with a concentration in geographic information systems and urban planning. So that's what got me a base level of, I guess, competency in this. I started with conservation leadership in high school in 1992. Taking 2 years of programs through Penn State, others through Pennsylvania's Department of Natural, I guess, DCNR. So I've had, since 92, I've been playing with conservation of natural resources, and that's what got me here. Long and winding road. So
It took me 28 and a half years to find a broker like you.
so what does green mean? This is an open forum, and this is about discussion, because I think green means a lot to a lot of people, and there's a lot of connotations to the crunchy granola type. No offense, MJ, that has a very positive connotation. To others, it may have a negative connotation due to some, political inflections placed on the word these days. And,
Right.
So to each their own. It's going to have some different feelings and thoughts associated with green. But stream of consciousness, what do we think of when we think green? What comes to mind, folks? Recycling.
pollution.
What was that?
No pollution.
Pollution, right? No pollution.
Eco-friendly, natural materials.
Natural materials.
A balance of human and the planet.
Okay, finding a balance. I think that green can encompass all of that stuff. In our kind of sphere of influence to do with real estate, I think we're going to hear things like green. We're going to hear high performance. We're going to hear energy efficient. But I want us to think about all those things. Resource conservation is kind of my focus when it comes to conservation of natural resources. Hang on, I gotta. Let somebody in here to. Why is this fighting me? Give me 1 second so I can get free my cursor to admit Jenny.
In how many languages is your cursor profane?
Yeah, many languages. So conservation of natural resources. Another connotation for green, or another meaning and something else that kind of comes into that bundle of principles, I think is health, because whenever we talk about green, there's a lot of people with environmental sensitivities out there. And environmental sensitivities might be to things like particulates in the atmosphere. Here in the central Cumberland Valley, we are especially attuned to tiny particles having to do with transportation, things that come off of trucks, right? Diesel fuel, suspended particulate matter in the atmosphere, and then other volatile organic compounds that might show up in the production of products that go into housing, like insulation, formaldehydes, and other VOCs in carpeting, in paint. So a lot of people have a lot of sensitivities to these particular elements that might show up. So what are some green upgrades that we're going to hear about? Solar panels are kind of one of the things that we hear about all the time. To a lesser degree, along those lines, to do with a personal habitat, wind power. We might not think about rain barrels as being a green upgrade, but that has to do with water recapture and again, the conservation of natural resources. Some of the things that we are, that are more commonplace these days in the language of green or high performance homes are going to be Energy Star. And Energy Star can have to do with something as simple as a dishwasher or an air conditioner, up to a water heater, or the house itself may have an Energy Star rating. And those are things that we can use or be aware of whenever we're talking about green or high performance homes. A higher level and having to do with commercial property would be the LEED energy rating system. Energy upgrades can include insulation, windows. Geothermal heat pumps are one of the more expensive home systems that you can do to upgrade energy efficiency in your home. What do we know about heat pumps? Anybody know what a heat pump is? What a heat pump does?
Yep.
Yeah, well, we all know what it is. What's it do? How's it work?
Takes heat from one place and moves it to another place.
Right. It can concentrate. I mean, the very simplest way of describing a heat pump is that it takes the little parts of the heat from the outside and concentrates them, and then vice versa for cooling. But the principle that it works on is that, and what makes a geothermal heat pump more effective is, a heat pump in your house, the heat pump that you most likely have or have had contact with, is dealing with the outside extremes. It might be 20 degrees outside. It might be 105 degrees outside. A geothermal heat pump only has to, and our comfortable living climate in our house is what? Around 69 to 72, somewhere in there. A geothermal heat pump becomes much more attractive and much more efficient and effective because you only have to swing when dealing with the temperature of the water in the ground is always around 52 or 54 degrees. So you have a constant medium to work with instead of the air outside, which can fluctuate between 20 and, or 20 and 100. Now you're always dealing with taking ambient heat or ambient cool from a medium that's consistently 52 or 54 degrees.
Doesn't have to work as hard.
Doesn't have to work as hard, much more efficient, and always there. Other things that we might not think about. A programmable thermostat is one of the most effective energy saving upgrades that you can make to a house. How many houses do we still sell that have the round little mercury switches on the wall? And you go in there and put in a programmable thermostat or a Nest, and you can make really dramatic influences to somebody's economy right there. So if we look at what people say is important to them, here's a neat little survey put together by NAR about what people were thinking about, from very important to not important at all. I think that this is a pretty illuminating visual aid to showing that something as simple as landscaping for water conservation, 3321, let's see, you've got 27, almost a third of the people who are buying homes are concerned about landscaping for water conservation. And that's something that might not occur to us. Renewable energy systems, solar, geothermal, et cetera, applies to a fifth of the buying population. If you had a way to steer your business towards 20% of the consumer out there, having knowledge about one of these is important. You look to windows, doors, and siding, you've got 80% of the people out there think that this is something that's important to talk about. So knowing what the buying clientele and the selling clientele are interested in can help you steer into business and steer away from landmines. Because just because you don't know about something doesn't mean that other people don't care about it. So this can tell us what we need to invest our educational time and energy into.
Okay, does PAR have something similar?
I don't know. I didn't look, but I could.
Yeah, I will too. Because
So-
our situation is not like Arizona or Florida or Alaska or Montana. You know, it's
No, but that's something I have slated to talk about later, but MJ, just because we think that it's our situation isn't the same as theirs doesn't mean that they're not going to come here and bring their considerations with them, right?
True
If you're in
enough.
the high desert of Denver, xeriscaping or water neutral landscaping is an absolute priority. But if you're no longer, I don't know why anyone would move here from Colorado. That's a beautiful place. But if you find somebody who's,
water.
somebody who's moving here from out of state and they have these sensitivities environmentally, and they are no longer tethered to their home, wherever they're coming from because of increases in technology, the freedom to work remotely, we're going to see a lot more of these people with their outside sensitivities and whatever, is important to them, they're bringing it with them. So it's my responsibility to you guys, and what we're going to cover today is how we keep an eye on these emerging trends like green considerations that you may encounter in the marketplace. We're going to talk about how to see these situations from a wider or a different perspective. And then we're going to talk about how to protect yourself and your client. And then how do you make a better living through this knowledge? And I say it's by having that knowledge, obtaining that knowledge, which increases your confidence. And then it gives you the ability to create a positive benefit to others. And then that's going to bring that benefit back around to you and help you make more money at what you do.
Cool.
So what are the green challenges that we encounter out there? There's a lack of infrastructure. These things are brand new. You were one of the first people to buy a all electric automobile. You had to be very aware of where a charging station was. Now, if you're one of the early adopters to, green or high performance technology in your home, number one, where do you get it to have it installed? Number two, how do you maintain it or repair it whenever it goes down? So there's not enough support for this emerging technology that's out there at present for some of these early things. Now, we see Solar City and all these other companies out there that are leasing, photovoltaic solar panels to homeowners. you see the infrastructure that's coming with charging stations for cars. That infrastructure is emerging. We're seeing it more and more, and it will become more and more common as people adopt. We have a lack of understanding. We can alienate clients because we don't understand these assets that they've installed in their home. And whenever they say, look, I've done this, this, and this, and if we don't understand it and how it relates to the marketplace, and we're like, well, it just really doesn't bring any value. How's that make them feel, guys? Like they threw their money away, or
And then, and that their agent doesn't feel that the things that are important to them are important to them.
right, well, we don't have shared values if we don't understand what they've done to the house. I mean, if we go in and tell them their house is ugly, are we more or less likely to get it? Same thing with the money that they've put into things that are important to them. If we don't understand that, the likelihood that we're going to connect with them on a meaningful level goes way down. So if we understand and identify with, the money they've spent, and show them that we understand this and we're able to convey that to a buyer, that enhances our relationship right off the bat. And then also that lack of understanding affects the buyer's comprehension of value. And then we run into problems with these early adopters spending, what's the cost of a geothermal heat pump system? Anybody know?
Like 30,000.
It's like $30,000.
Depends on the property.
Depends on the property, depends on the system. But, you're not going to get a well driller in to drill multiple wells on a property before you get to the equipment, for cheap. So a lot of times, some of these heavy duty upgrades that a seller finds value in, and maybe a buyer finds value in, what happens if, we come to terms on a contract and the appraiser doesn't know how to value that? So those are some real challenges that we see out there. And we see that one with appraisals all the time. So how do we overcome these challenges? One, the economics will drive acceptance. Whenever it makes, and this has been a problem forever, and will be forever, doing what is right in order to conserve natural resources, to preserve the public health, to create safe environments for us to live in or drive in or walk in. The economics is going to drive that, 95 out of 100 times. You're going to have the people who adopt these things from an ideological perspective, but until it makes sense financially to do the right thing, you're going to have problems tackling that problem. So now what we're seeing is, as gas prices go up, what's selling more? Electric cars. As a landlord, I took a property and I tore out the old oil furnace and put in a heat pump because I didn't want to be left filling oil tanks. Economics are driving good decisions in cases like this. So the economics will drive the acceptance. The acceptance is going to drive that infrastructure. Whenever you have a product to be serviced, those service producing or service providers are going to arrive and show up. And that's going to be a self-fulfilling or kind of cycle there. The education will drive the understanding. So who's going to drive that education? We are with our marketing. The frequency of these occurrences is going to drive the data in the MLS to provide for appraisers to be able to, fill that. And one of the ways that we can overcome that lack of data is Fannie, Freddie, any government underwritten loan. There's a requirement there to have an appraiser who has competency in that arena. So if we have a specialized property that's a high performance property, a green property, and we have significant high dollar upgrades to that property, it's our right as a borrower to request that we have an appraiser with competency in that area to make sure that this is given proper consideration. Do you guys know that?
No, I didn't.
All right.
That's good to know.
That is. And there are, through, certain graduate degrees within the appraisal field, accreditations that can be offered to appraisers to make sure that they have that. It may even benefit you by, if you have a very specialized upgrade to a property, they may have to go to a larger, what they call universe of samples, a larger neighborhood to find comps for that. So they may no longer be pulling comps from Shippensburg. They may be going as far as all of Cumberland County or a tri or 5-county area. So how do we overcome that lack of info? We educate ourselves so that we may educate our clients, and we document this in the MLS. So anytime we have an opportunity, and I've beat this drum before about information accuracy in the MLS when it comes to, if you sell a property over asking price, do you go in and adjust that price up? No, because it skews the info. Likewise, if we're selling a property that has some of these upgrades that, for lack of a better term, we lump them in under green, we should go ahead and make sure that we have those notated properly under the check boxes in those categories so that they become searchable. So that the next time you list a property, you can go and you can find comps that have similar upgrades, and you can start to measure over time how those patterns affect the value of a property.
But you would also be relying on the agents of those other properties annotating that information as well.
Right. We need to get to a critical mass. We need to have enough people in the marketplace marking and notating these upgrades for it to be meaningful.
Right.
Trying to think of some that we've changed over time here to make it effective. Things that used to not really be, noted in the marketplace, but now are. I guess we've always done square footage. There was a time when below grade square footage wasn't noted, and now it is. Questions so far? You all sleeping? I knew it.
Nope. Do you have an example of what you feel could be an issue with an appraiser? Because I feel like geothermal's been out there a while. I don't know about solar panels though. What I was thinking about the list that you had, and I was just looking at all that
Sure.
stuff.
Solar panels are, I think can be a big one. There's just not, I think, enough comparable data out there that they can do all of their, what they call matched pair analysis.
Right.
To say that this 3,500 square foot home, sold for X amount, and this 3,500 square foot with solar panels sold for X amount enough, more, are they able to make enough of these matched pair analysis to discern that it's a contributing factor to value? And that's why over time, you just have to collect enough of this data so that you can look back and find those patterns.
Or at least to put a value on it.
Right now, so many of these things are just, chalked up to condition.
Mhm.
Hey, it's got new windows. That adds new condition. But anyone who lives in a house that's 100 years old will tell you that there's real value in new windows in a 100-year-old house, because I can no longer see my drapes move in the winter. Right? And my heating bills, might have gone down 25 to 50% because I no longer have those drafty old windows.
I don't have to scrape frost off the inside.
I don't have to scrape frost. There's no longer condensation inside the storm windows. Anybody who's experienced this will tell you. A lot of this comes down to, people don't make the leap between, and green is such a kind of a lame term, but this is household comfort. This is household economics. This is, things that make your life better. You might not label them as green, but we don't have a umbrella term that captures all this, effectively. So they just kind of get lumped into there. It's just, this is quality of life. And they just, the terminology is weird. So why should we care? One reason is our clients have spent good money on these upgrades and they want the most value in return. If we don't understand that, we're not able to help them, and we might miss the boat. We might miss the boat on getting them top dollar. We might miss the boat on making that connection. We might miss the boat for our buyers in finding a great deal or great value that's been overlooked by a listing agent. Also, we should care because these upgrades now and in the future will help to differentiate our product, our listing against others. And eventually clients will demand these upgrades for various reasons. So, perspective, why should a buyer be interested in high performance, energy efficient, or green modifications? Let's talk household economics. That's the number one driver. The IRA. Anybody know what IRA is other than the Irish Republican Army? It's the Inflation Reduction Act. And whether or not you agree with the politics associated and swirling around the Inflation Reduction Act, or question how energy efficiency has anything to do with inflation reduction, energy independence is one of the, buzzwords out there these days in favor of fracking, drilling in the United States. You want to talk about inflation? Let's talk about OPEC. And, the Inflation Reduction Act is putting America first whenever it comes to taking control of your own energy independence as a household. If I have energy independence as a homeowner, because of these upgrades, I am less reliant on or less affected by cuts in OPEC production. I give less of a damn about fracking and its cost on natural gas. I give, it gives me insulation from a household economic perspective against the outside world. And, if let's take it to the nth degree, what if I'm off grid? I don't care at all. If I have a self-charging car that's supported by photovoltaic energy cells on my roof, I no longer care about the cost of heating fuel. I no longer care about the cost of automobile fuel. These are real considerations that we need to take into account. Now, even before the Inflation Reduction Act, there are tax credits out there for installation of home charging stations for automobiles. There are credits out there for installation of solar panels. Why do you think solar panels are now a business that they will come and install them and lease them to you? That company's getting the credits for the installation. They're making money off your back, Jack. So think twice about that whole lease versus own situation. this is all before you get to decreased utility bills. So I like to think of energy independence on a household level over a national level, but these are all things that need to be taken into account. And then there's comfort and health. Like I said, the 100-year-old house with the drafty windows and the, maybe you used to have a carpeted foyer and then you decided you wanted tile. Did you go back and put in did you put in a sweep under that front door because of the 1/2-inch gap?
Oh,
Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I didn't. I've got a wind tunnel coming in under the front door, and then there, you've also got the ideological approach of the conservation of resources. And I think that that's important to a lot of younger folks right now, because they see what's going on. Whether or not you agree with the science is irrelevant. These things are out there. Water levels are going up. If you're familiar with any coastal America, you'll see construction not on new real estate, but on old real estate, raising them up out of flood zones, raising highways, building flood walls. These things happen, and that's why green housing is important to a lot of people. Why wouldn't a buyer be interested in high performance, energy efficient, or green modifications? This little pie chart shows you what is important to people. But main things are going to be upfront expense, lack of convenience, and a lack of information or understanding. So there may be a thought that green energy is unreliable, right? That we can't have solar panels in Pennsylvania because there's only 7 sunny days in the month of October or whatever. And that's just not accurate. Now, are we Arizona? No. But I think that they just came out with this morning, again, the polls for primetime retirement venues in this country. 4 of them were the state of Pennsylvania. What was number 1, Cindy?
Lancaster.
What was number 2? Harrisburg.
God, that's right.
Number 1 was Lancaster. Number 2 was Harrisburg. Also on there was Pittsburgh and Reading.
I was
It's like,
ready,
really? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't Altoona,
right?
but in the country. So and part of that is healthcare. Another one is cost of living. Another is proximity to things they want. But if you're in Arizona, the cost of water is going to be far more expensive. We're in a temperate climate, right? It's never too hot, it's never too cold. We don't get any tornadoes. So as much as we might get down on what we have, we do have a lot of great stuff. So solar availability, that's something that's misconstrued. We do have the production from a solar standpoint here. Upfront expense that can be overcome with some of these subsidies and rebates that are out there. Lack of convenience. I don't know, if I didn't have to stop at a gas station ever again, that might be convenient. I don't know. These are all things that we're learning to live with and learning about. And how can we overcome objections to help our clients? Number 1, provide facts. Don't rest on what we think we know. If there's an opportunity to learn, we should get in there and learn it, right? And then we take that fact and we bridge it to the benefit. Anybody ever hear this fact bridge benefit before? All right, so, we take a particular, asset of a home. And then we bridge that to the benefit and how that's actually going to benefit our client. So you see this in write-ups all the time. Great deck. You could just leave it there. For entertaining friends and family, right? That's fact bridge benefit. Solar panels. So what? To reduce the monthly cost of of your home, geothermal heat. To reduce your reliance on, whatever, to decrease your heating and cooling, to increase your efficiency, however you want to spin that or accentuate the benefit that you're trying to sell there. And then we need to talk about the future benefit of current costs. While yes, there may be a upfront cost to a Tesla, the fact that you don't have to pay for oil changes, the fact that you don't have to go to the gas station, the fact that you don't have to, do all these maintenance that's associated with an internal combustion engine.
$15.99 a month for heated seats, though.
Right. I mean, these are things that you may be able to turn into a benefit where once it was an obstacle. Right. So how do you value a solar panel? Open this up to the forum, anybody. You walk into a house and you're like, well, there's solar panels, so there's that. How's your client react? Anyone? What is your client's reaction? Let's do some role playing.
To just solar panels in general.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had them all over the board, but I think the biggest one is, I don't know anything about those. I don't know how they work, and it's in fear of something new.
Right. I don't know anything about that. Okay. So what's that mean? Right. We have an opportunity to educate them. And when we're educating them, we can come up with a few things. So, the one thing that I'll talk about here before we move on, the future benefit of present costs. The way I usually run about this is, what is the benefit of the, what's the future benefit of present costs? Let's talk flood insurance. Nobody knows how to attach a value of flood insurance that they're paying on a monthly basis, right? So I kind of take this roundabout approach to get people to see what that is costing them in opportunity cost. What's flood insurance cost? Anybody? Throw out a number.
$950 a year.
950?
Yeah, how much?
I thought it was like 3,000.
Oh, no. It's, I mean, depending on the flood zone, but like an
Melinda, are you tuned in?
Wow.
MJ, you guys have flood insurance pretty prevalent in your market.
I am. Sorry.
What's a common cost for an average home on flood insurance?
It's gonna go by the mortgage amount, but the last client that I had, I think they were around 2,000.
All right, around 2,000 a year. Okay, so 2,000 a year divided by 12 gets us $167 a month. Can anybody tell me what the cost to borrow $1,000 a month is in payments and interest in today's mortgage rate environment? The cost to borrow $1,000 in today's mortgage rate environment is $6.32 at 6.5% interest. Okay, so if I borrow $1,000, it's going to cost me $6.32 per month to pay it back. $100,000 house, $632 mortgage. All right. So we take 167. That's the monthly cost of a $2,000 flood insurance. So 167 divided by 632, that gives me $26,000 of additional house I could afford
instead of flood zone.
if I wasn't buying in the flood zone. Did everybody follow how I did that? All right, so if I'm not spending $2,000 a year, I'm buying $26,000 in a house. Is there a big difference between a $200,000 house and a $226,000 house? There damn well could be. Is there a big difference between a $225,000 house and a $250,000 house? There could be. There's different breaks in the market, right? There might not be a big difference between 200 and 225.
I think that 275 to 300.
I think that 275 to 300 is a bigger watershed, right? So how does this work in reverse? If I'm not spending $167,000 or $167 a month in electric bills, how much more house could I afford for the same payment monthly? You're still at that, and is $167 a realistic electric bill that might be offset by solar panels? It is, it really is. $167 is absolutely attainable in central Pennsylvania with solar panels on your house. So that's how we can have this discussion about the future benefit of present cost. Another part to that, or another component to that discussion, guys, are energy bills going up or down? Why are they going up?
Because everything is right now.
Supply and demand, war in the Middle East, whatever you got. I mean, this is the longest term peace we've had in the Middle East. I mean, gee whiz, OPEC, they hold our future in their hands. All right. I also talked about protecting you guys, right? So we shifted from perspective on this. I hope that illustration was illuminating. To get to protection, I talk about staying in your lane from time to time. The NAR Code of Ethics says that the realtor shall not undertake to provide specialized professional services, right? So how do we cure that lack of competency? Anyone?
Source of the source.
Right, you ask. You be knowledgeable about that type of property being valued. You have access to the information or resources necessary to form an accurate opinion. And you be familiar with the subject matter. How do we do that? Ask questions. Always ask questions, right? Listen to your client and do the research to educate yourself. It's, I know it sounds easy. Sometimes you don't know when you're over your skis until it's too late. And, there's a very small element here, but always be looking for opportunities to enhance your knowledge and to find something in a property that you're listing to make it different or better. How can we protect the buyer client? Always ask questions of the list agent. Hopefully the list agent knows what they're doing. And if not, we can refer them to ask questions of the seller. One of the dangers we run into with sellers is the same problem that we run into with ourselves is we're in our own head and we know what we know and we don't know what other people know, right? We use terms, we use jargon that we understand that our clients don't understand. The same thing with sellers. One of my favorite stories, and they become familiar with what they're familiar with and don't realize that that's out of the ordinary to other people. So I listed a house, and this neighborhood is kind of known for having septics kind of go bad on them. So one of the questions I asked about my listing in Kendor Summit, Cindy, was ever have any problems with the septic? And they said no. All right, great. So we sell the property, and the buyer client decided to scope the septic line. and they sent out the scope and they found a block in the line. So they went out and they determined that it was the distribution box. So they sent out the excavators and they went to dig up where the distribution box was. And it was an oak tree, 3 feet wide, right where the distribution box should have been. It's like a squirrel planted a distribution box or planted an acorn in that distribution box the day the house was done. And it grew up out of that. And I went back to the clients and I said, so you said you never had any problems with the septic? And they said, well, you can't take a shower and do the laundry at the same time. Otherwise it backs up into the downstairs bathroom, but you know, that's normal, right? People don't understand what's different for them. So you have to ask the questions. You have to ask the questions. Also, you have to listen to your client when we're trying to protect that buyer client. Find out what's important to them. And you only do that by listening. Do the research. You know, you find out there's a property with a upgrade and the seller can't offer this information, or the seller agent offers you a little bit of detail on it, enough to be dangerous. Just hit the Google, maybe find out a little bit more information to find out if the information that you're being offered tracks with reality. And once you do that, then guide your client to seek their own verification.
The thing about it is though,
Because they're going to have different questions than you have.
well, I'm sitting here thinking about your septic system.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, that's from experience, that you knew that,
I didn't know that until after the fact.
didn't? I'm sitting here thinking about my well. And I'm thinking about how it went dry
Mhm.
or it collapsed or whatever. Well, that's like a known trait in that area. How am I supposed to know that?
Well, you can't, and you don't know what you don't know, and that's why I say do the research. Ask the questions of your client. Listen for cues that might not track. And, you
I'm
know,
being literal, sorry.
it's all right. I'm saying, sometimes we take things at face value. Sometimes we dig a little bit different. What's the difference? It's the little man in our belly who's like, that's not quite right,
Right,
urging us to ask more questions.
it's all about the gut.
Yep. And then document. If you are taking the word of your listing agent or your seller, document it. If you're taking the word of a third party, get it documented. And that will protect your buyer should everything not exactly match up. Now, how can we protect our seller client? That slide looks strikingly similar to the last one, but always ask questions of the seller. Right? How do we serve the seller? Ask the seller questions, get the information from them, and help them to interpret it.
Make sure you read the seller's disclosure.
Make sure you read that seller's disclosure
And it's
because there's going to be
clarified.
cues in there.
That's right.
I don't tell them what to write.
Yeah, I
Right.
don't tell them what to write, just make sure-
But interpret what they put
What
down.
does this mean? Can you elaborate?
Do the research if they, you know, are, oh man, it's like 17 years since I put in that stuff. You know, maybe these things have changed a little bit. Maybe this is more of a benefit than they realize. But ask your client to provide the verification or the documents that they have. And then document in order to share this with an uninformed buyer to overcome a objection. Or maybe the documentation that you've been provided will lead you to a better way to market this property, to leverage this improvement that they've made in their property and make this a benefit. I mean, just listen to the tone of our discussion. This all sounds like we're trying to overcome objections when these are upgrades to a property that can enhance value. And we need to look at that and try and find ways to make this unknown thing that can detract from value into a shiny, new, exciting thing that can introduce value to the marketplace and can make this property stand out above the neighbors. So how can we benefit? We need to recognize that obstacles drive opportunity. We need to understand that upgrades differentiate the product. And we need to recognize that knowledge is power. And if you know more than your competition, you win every single time, whether it's the contract, whether it's pricing, whatever. Knock anybody off their game by knowing more than them. And then we should know that niche marketing is powerful, right? Whether it's in the historic district, whether it's in horse farms, whether it's with green properties, there can be a benefit to this specialized knowledge. So under the heading of obstacles driving opportunity, speaking with knowledge in a client interaction will always enhance your standing. Not that being frank and saying, I don't know the answer to that, let me do some research doesn't help you. But, you know, standing there and shrugging and saying, I don't know, couldn't tell you, bub,
That's how you're supposed to do it.
doesn't help you. I mean, whether this is for example, a seller situation. Hey, I made this upgrade to my house. This was important to me. And you say, yep, I recognize that. I've had experience with that. And let me tell you about it. Is that going to put you above the competition who says, that's great, next? Right? Or if you have a buyer who says, solar panels, kind of scared about that. I don't understand. What happens if I need to replace my roof? Well, we've seen in contracts with solar panel installers, you know, if you own this, there is a warranty, you know, it will cover this or that. If you have to replace your roof, there is a charge for removal and storage of those panels, and then they will come and reinstall those. There's typically a 2-month period where you're going to be without that. So how do we find out that information?
Research, call.
Yeah, I Googled Solar City. I called Solar City. Solar City told us how it worked. Great. Okay. Now I'm an authority in solar panels because of 15 minutes worth of research and conversations with a poorly paid rep in Utah. Be the source of the source. Here's the phone number for Solar City. Call them and talk to their department that has to do with this. And they will clearly define exactly what's going to happen for you in this situation. And now you are a connector and you are the source of a source, and now you have credibility. Or realizing the value of that upgrade to benefit your client. Hey, you've got solar panels. Here's how I'm going to market that. I'm going to talk about the future benefit of present cost, and I'm going to break it down like this. In our market, how much are you saving on your energy bills every month? Oh, about $2,000 a year. Great. I'm going to explain to buyers how that equates to $26,000 in additional house that they can afford. So that's how we have this conversation about turning those obstacles into opportunity. So let's talk about upgrades differentiating the product. Be the shiny penny. You know, in a market which was completely slanted towards the seller, we didn't have to be the shiny penny, right? We just throw it out there. But in a market where things may shift over the coming year or years, where there may be additional inventory to step away from to make ourselves better by comparison. The shiny penny analogy came from one of my former mentors, and you know, she would reach into her purse and pull out a pocket full of pennies and say, pick one. And every time you reach in and grab the shiny penny, why'd you grab that one? It was shiny.
Pretty.
It stood out from the crowd. It demonstrated more value than the rest of them. You need to convey that economic value, and you can describe those lifestyle enhancements, whether that's more house that you can afford, whether that's security against future uncertainty. You're creating peace of mind. whether that is the additional cost savings from reduced utilities, or the peace of mind that comes from a healthy household environment created from an air exchanger or a humidity management system, or low chemical content in the carpets. You know, my brother just had his first child on last Thursday.
Oh, congratulations, Uncle Justin.
I am Uncle Justin for the first time.
First uncle? Yeah.
First uncle.
Awesome.
So now, for the first time, my brother's mind is blowing. And I am laughing my
Did
ass
he
off.
have to refer to you as uncle?
No, because my brother now is concerned about Teflon and cookware. He's concerned about flame retardants in child's sleepwear. You know, all of these different things that become important to you whenever your perspective shifts. You know, we're creating peace of mind, and this green umbrella covers so many more things than energy efficiency, but also you know, low chemical content, et cetera. So how do we differentiate the product? We tell them about the product. We show them the product. Hey, look, here it is. Here's how it works. And then we validate that data to offer them comfort and security, whether that's through utility bills. Hey, check it out. This utility bill, or these 12 utility bills from the past year, have zeros on them. And you can see in this month, they actually got a refund of X amount. You know, third-party verifications, whether that be a Energy Star certification or a Pearl Solar certification. There are different levels of certifications for different levels of upgrades. But you know, we want to put ourselves in a situation where they don't necessarily just take our word for it, but we can actually show them empirical.
Take a lead for it.
Right. We never want them to take our word for it. We want to be able to show them some data to back up the pitch that we're making. And then knowledge is power. Where do we get information? Well, the Green Resource Council through NAR is a good source of information. That's where I got all the information for this presentation. Product manufacturers, straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Get their data, use their data. If they're wrong, it's on them. Sellers, such as, you know, what do you have? What is this product? What is your experience with it? Utilities, showing those utility bills. The MLS someday is going to be a great resource of information. And then Google, you know, wherever you get your information, just get it and be creative. And if you have questions and need help being creative, let's talk it out. Not saying I have the answers, but most of the answers that we come up with are through discussion and bouncing ideas off of one another. And just remember, niche marketing is powerful. You know, whether it's a green designation or a designation to help seniors in housing, focus on what interests you have, what you're already good at, what's your background in, what's your life experience guide you towards, and what does your life experience provide for you, and what are emerging trends. Right now, green energy and housing is an emerging trend. What are some other emerging trends out there? Anyone? Bueller.
You mean as far, I don't know. I
Okay.
can't think of anything off the top of my head.
How many people are downsizing?
Oh my God, yeah.
Crap done.
Mhm.
What are they looking for?
One level.
One level. So, you know, that senior housing certification. What do you call that, MJ? What do you got? think MJ bailed out on me. What about,
Do you think, like Walden communities are still trending?
you mean
Self-contained.
self-contained
Yeah.
communities? Different aspects of those communities are.
Justin,
Yes, MJ.
would
Or, Melinda.
multi-generational,
Multi-generational, that is an emerging trend. And I am having my hands full with one right now. I have a listing that's two properties on, two houses on one property, right?
Is that the one still on Middlesex or is it?
Yeah, on South Middlesex. It was a family compound, right? Mom and dad had a ranch house. Son built a man's dream, a 3-car commercial scale garage with that's 30 by 50 garage with a grease pit and a lift and a hoist. And then a 30 by 50 residence above it, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. Perfect. You know, I get to work on my 57 Chevys, which the guy did, and then live upstairs. Everyone died except for the son's wife, and now we're trying to sell it. You'd think we'd have more multi-generational interest in that.
It's hard having a 3-bedroom house.
I will
above a
say most,
garage.
most of the multi-generational though is a mix between financial, so they're not looking at gigantic, larger properties or things like that. and Toys, they're looking for practical.
Yeah, and one of the problems that we're having with that niche is, again, appraisal. So a strong niche for me wasn't necessary, was a combination of geographic and subject matter. And I talk about this all the time, the historic district. Because I live in the historic district, which is regional, but then having the subject matter to back up that geographic farm made for a pretty powerful niche. And I've gotten referrals from people like, oh, call Justin, he's on farm. So that's what the whole thing was here, was all to talk about emerging trends, how to put yourself out there, how to turn what could be an obstacle into an asset. And I hope you found some value in it. Any questions before we wrap it up, guys? All right, I encourage you to educate yourself, whether that's in the form of a designation or just reading. Do whatever it takes and prepare yourself for what comes. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here and have a great day.
thank you.
Thanks.
Good.